Hello, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Chair of the RMT union, and with respect to the important industrial action which is taking place, you've turned into a bit of a star, haven't you?
Well, I've no desire to be a star. I want to get an agreement for my people, and if that means I can go back to having a low profile, I'll be delighted. But we've got to concentrate on getting a square deal out of this dispute.
Where is it now? Because we're on a third day of rail strikes today. Obviously, you know that it inconveniences people. Some people get very irate about it. If you're not so affected by it, it's different, and you might be able to understand why you want to keep up with the cost of living. And I do get that completely. So where are we?
Well, we're taking effective industrial action. As it happens, as you can hear in the background, we're getting a lot of support from the public, the travelling public, as well as people passing us by. And the opinion polls that we've seen this week have shown a surprising, for some people, level of support from the general public. Now, we don't want to be in dispute. We don't want to be on strike. My members here on Mount Euston Picket Line are losing their money for the third day. But they're determined that they get a square deal. It's not just about pay. It's about thousands of job losses that they're threatening us with. They want to dilute the conditions in a form of fire and rehire, if you like. They're telling us we've all got to accept new contracts of employment. The new starters will be on far less money than the current staff, and they're creating this 2- and 3-tier workforces will just be cheaper, and people will be poorer. They're also attacking our pension scheme, and they want to make that less valuable as well. So we've got a lot of issues in front of us, but we'll be talking to the companies next week and trying to get a deal organised.
You've just listed a number of issues that you're trying to deal with on behalf of your members that an awful lot of people in other lines of work who aren't covered by union support or not members of unions, they're all having to go through this. Pension schemes are under a huge amount of attack everywhere. New contracts of employment. I mean, people's rights are being eroded, rather. Is there a number? Have you backed down at all yet on a number just on pay? I know it's more than just pay, but are you still looking at 7% that you want?
Well, we weren't looking for 7%. We haven't dealt with numbers because we haven't got that far in the talks. What we need to do is sort out the job security angle. What's going to happen to the level of jobs in the railway industry? Then the companies have got an agenda for change. There's been a lot of talk about new technology, working practices. We'll deal with that and we'll try and get an agreement. When that's settled, there will be a proposal, I take it, about what value the companies put on that, and we'll have to see whether that suits our members' aspirations and what they need. But the cost of living, as you know, everyone knows, is flying through the roof at the moment. Yeah. And a lot of workers have suffered, and our people here haven't had a pay rise for 2 or 3 years.
How many people do you represent?
Got to be addressed, so it's a tough negotiation.
You've got 40. Are you representing 40,000 RMT members in this dispute?
So there were 42,000 people balloted in this dispute. Many people who weren't in the union are actually joining us to take part. We've got another 10,000 people that were on strike on Tuesday in London Underground because there are major issues there. So in the dispute this week, there's been 53,000 people taking action.
And how many of those people, Mick, have been threatened with losing their job?
Well, they're all threatened. They're all threatened with a new contract of employment. In Network Rail, they said that we're going to make redundancies, and the number that they've given us just on the track worker section, the formal number was 2,900. But that's not a fixed number. There could be more according to what the working practice changes they want. And on the train operating side, in the stations and on the trains, they've said they're going to shut every booking office in Britain. They're going to have major cuts to the catering staff. They're going to cut the number of people working generally on the railway, but they haven't got as far as putting a number to that, but it will be in the thousands. So they're all under threat, really, but even if you survive that jobs cull, you will have to take a new contract of employment in most of the jobs. And what they're saying to us, that those contracts will be cheaper and the conditions will be diluted that you get, and the working practices will be more onerous. That's
right.
And the companies aren't denying that. They say that the railway has to be cheaper because the government has cut $4 billion from the funding across Transport for London and the National Railway.
And it's true that numbers have gone down using the services, haven't they, with new ways of working? I mean, do you accept that?
Well, the numbers went down chiefly, Andrew, because they told everybody to stay at home during, and that's, I supported that.
No, but that's a reality. That's happening,
it is a reality. But they asked us, our members required them to work, and they worked all the way through COVID. The numbers were down because that was a national necessity. It was an emergency.
Yeah.
What we need to do now is rebuild the railway and get it up, because it's essential to the future of our nation, we believe, to cut back on congestion, to move goods around the country by rail so that we haven't got as many lorries, and to cut carbon. We must have a vibrant public sector, public transport system so that the towns and villages around the country are connected up without the use of private motoring. So the railways have to come back. I think it's a national strategy.
Well,
that we need
the market will decide. I mean, if people are working, for instance, on the busy commuter lines coming into big cities, if they're suddenly doing 2 or 3 days a week at home, that demand is likely to remain lower. I mean, we've seen that social change, haven't we? I mean, that's
well, we have seen changes, and we will adapt to that. But the railway passenger use and revenues will grow, because we need to convert people from private motoring to public transport. And we're looking at phenomenal growth since COVID in leisure travel, people doing their leisure travel by rail. And those numbers are up to they're actually exceeding pre-COVID levels. Now, we need a proper pricing structure on the railway so it's attractive. We need a comfortable environment and a safe environment, and, of course, an on-time service. And we'll play our part in that as railway workers. Railway workers are very dedicated to the railway. They like the culture of the railway. They like the public service element. But we can't have them getting poorer year on year, and that's the situation at the moment.
Okay.
Our members' earning power is less than before COVID.
And when they strike, your members, do they go without a day's pay?
Yes, my people here have lost 3 days' pay this week, depending on what days they were rostered on. But many of them lost 3 days. Most of them lost 2 days' pay. So the next pay packet, that will be short.
What did you make of Sir Keir Starmer earlier on this week, leader of the Labour Party, telling MPs and the party to avoid picket lines?
Well, many of them avoided that. We've got a lot of support from Labour Party MPs. I'm not. I can't tell Keir Starmer what to do. He's got to sort out his own disposition to this dispute, and trade unions in general. But it's obvious that workers need a strong trade union movement to rebalance what has been a deterioration in working life in this country. And many people are feeling it. And in the Labour heartlands, as they were, one of the problems they've got is insecure and precarious work, where wages are going down to the minimum wage as a default position. And there are very few benefits that are associated work. All you get is your hourly rate and nothing more. And sometimes you don't even get guaranteed hours. Now, there's got to be some employment rights in this country. And I think one of the ways that Keir Starmer could reconnect with working people, the lower paid people in society, is by giving them a programme of workers' rights and employment rights that rebalances work. Because at the moment, all the power is in the hands of the big employers and profits are up, but spending power is down. We've got a really peculiar situation of full employment and falling wages. That's never happened.
Yeah, and 5 million people on benefits, which is hard to understand
exactly.
as well.
They're working full-time jobs and having to take benefits.
It's a confusing situation. Now, Grant Shapps, have you spoken with him lately?
No, he doesn't want to speak to me, I don't think.
Do you actually try? Do you try to get through, Mick? Sorry to interrupt. Do you try to get through to him? I mean,
we write to him. I wrote to him last week and said, can we have a meeting? Can we try and sort this out? Look, I'm not expecting Grant Shapps to sit at the table for 8 hours, but I want him to facilitate the atmosphere and the mood where we can get a settlement. And, of course, his officials who do the detail can take part in that. He's either got to be constructive or destructive in this dispute. At the moment, he's throwing brickbats and insults at railway workers and at trade unions.
It's becoming this political battlefield now, isn't it? It's got that sort of sense of something rather symbolic about it, hasn't it?
Well, it's because they want to clamp down on public sector pay. That's what they're fearful of.
Well, you can understand why, can't you?
I can understand why, but I can understand why workers in the health service and in education and care and the council's provision of services, many of them have not had proper pay rises for nearly 12 years now, since Mr. Osborne and Mr. Cameron brought that austerity in, as that we all remember, and people are really suffering. Their real wages, i.e. at the till in the shops, have gone down by 20% in some cases. Now, people are getting poor. There's no doubt about it. 5 million people on benefits, while many of them are actually working full-time jobs. Something's got to be done about that, and one of the best ways to do it is through the pay packet.
Let me put two texts to you before I let you go, Mick, if it's all right. And if you don't like them, then I'm sure you'll tell us. And you'll have heard it all before. This RMT are just politically motivated. It's too expensive and unreliable transport compared to every other EU country. They're holding the UK back and stopping progress. A train driver needs less skill than an HGV driver. Mick.
Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, we've got drivers in our union, but most of our people in our union are moderately paid. The engineering staff, the train crew staff, the station staff, they're not on salaries like Andrew. They're on 25 to 30k, and that's a modest by anyone's standards, and they work shifts. The point about the European railways, of course, is they're all state-owned, and they're very well funded, and they provide a really good service. I worked for the Eurostar, which was partly owned or fully owned by the French railway, and that is a really well provisioned railway, and they respect the workforce. That's what we want. Well, I want a modern, cutting-edge railway service that people can trust and be proud of.
Yeah.
That's what I want from the railway, a system that we can be proud of, where the workforce are happy, professional, safe, competent, and are getting properly rewarded. We're not asking for millions, we're asking for a living.
And when people say that you're, like they did on Question Time the other day, they say you're a dinosaur and that you're a Marxist trying to bring down the government. That's what you are. What do you say to that, Mick?
The government and the MPs in the government are doing a good job of trying to bring themselves down. Look, I support democracy. We support the ballot box. We vote for this dispute through postal ballots. Our members voted very heavily. We're a democratic union. I respect government ministers. They've got a mandate from the public, and they've got a job to do, but they've got to work constructively with the other elements of the democracy. And free trade unions, Andrew, are a part of a vibrant democracy. That's all part of that constitutional settlement that we have.
I agree.
But I'm not a dinosaur. I'm a modern man. Or I'm
Tyrannosaurus Lynch, that's what you are.
Yeah.
Diplodocus Lynch. It's good to speak with you. Thanks very much indeed for your time. That's Mick Lynch, who is chair of the RMT union. You'll see.